Okay, I set up a hangout a little while back and forgot to turn the mic on, so I have to do it again. Alrighty, the topic is ego, mind, lies and beliefs. And I want to start it off by reading a very simple, but I think very telling quote from possibly the Cherokee, who knows. The old Cherokee told his grandson, "There is a battle between two wolves inside us all." So no one's excluded, according to the Cherokee. One is evil. It is anger, jealousy, greed, resentment, inferiority, lies, and ego. The other is good. It is joy, love, peace, hope, humility, kindness, empathy, and truth. The boy thought about what his grandfather just said, and he said, "Grandfather, which wolf wins?" The old man quietly replied, "The one you feed." If you have a look at the characteristics carefully, you'll notice that the evil one is a selfish one. So anger is something we get angry about circumstances that happen to us. So the focus is on the self. Jealousy, jealous of another person and wanting whatever they've got. Greed is looking after number one, acquiring as much as you can, and probably an unequitable share. Resentment, resenting others. Inferiority, feeling inferior to another person. But again, it's focusing on the self. Lies are aligned to this evil wolf, and ego as well. Then the other wolf, in contrast, is about joy, love, peace, hope, humility, kindness, empathy, and truth. So joy only comes as an experience when you're focusing on other people. Same with love. Love is about how you feel about another person and their well-being. Peace only occurs when we live with integrity and honesty, truth. So it lines up with truth. Hope, but it's also it's our relationship with others around us. We have a peaceful relationship with those people. Hope, not a fan of that. Humility, so being humble before others. Kindness, caring about others. Empathy, empathetic towards others. And truth. So we have this concept of a duality in us all. I tend to think that they're tied very closely to survival instincts. We see in nature where there are survival strategies that involve the individual and its well-being, like a lion or a baboon troop leader. And we also see more, and they're quite aggressive communities. And we also see herd animals like shoals of fish, where the survival strategy is such that they need to keep a close eye on their neighbour and be conscious of where that neighbour actually is, so that they stay in formation. Because if they don't follow that rule, that love thy neighbour rule, they break from the herd and their survival strategy fails. So I think it's got something to do with these instinctive survival patterns. Therein lies the two shoulder angels, if you like, or this concept of evil and good. I think somewhere along the track in history, people with strong self-interest have worked these things out and have then used them to their own or to their dynasty's advantage. So through history, we have examples of what's known as a cult of personality. Plenty of examples of it. So a cult of personality is a situation where a leader of a community tells that community or creates a story that aligns that leader with a god. Now, not all of them survived, but I think some have. And I think that that behavior, or that selfish behavior by significant empires through history, are the cause of religion. My focus starts with Cyrus the Great, and that's an interesting phenomenon. When I was looking at, how did religions come to be, I found that the trail often included, particularly at key points of the literature, often included a person that had called themselves the Great. So we've got Cyrus the Great, Constantine the Great. A key figure in Christianity is the Flavian dynasty. Agrippa the Great, Alexander the Great. And from a simplistic point of view, that's ego, calling oneself ego. And if you look at the material or the economic benefits that those particular great leaders had in comparison to the rest of their community, they had an inequitable share. Now, I'm very confident that religions are cults of personalities designed by empires. Extremely confident about that. But there's a problem when people, and this comes back to beliefs. When people hold a belief dear to them, they really don't want to let it go. Now, when I think of beliefs, I think of them as part of the ego mind, because they're a construct, a thought in mind that has no evidence in reality. And that must have been something these guys figured out, that they could sort of pull these scams off, because there's no way of proving them. Well, maybe. There's no way of proving them wrong. Well, that's what they believe. So they could get away with murder. There's a contemporary example, and that's North Korea. We have the Kim dynasty telling their population lies about the Kims. One such lie was that the Kims could read the mind of their subjects, and people in North Korea are so scared to think ill of their leader because of a belief. And I don't think there's anyone outside of North Korea that would not say that that is a definite cult of personality. Yet mention to a Muslim that their religion is in fact a cult of personality, or to a Christian that theirs is a cult of personality, and oh no, that won't be heard of, that can't be. They've invested, they've given to these religious institutions their faith, and that commitment isn't, in their mind's view, an error. But I can tell you it definitely is. But there's an intriguing aspect to the whole story about religions, and that's called the it's known as the Gospel of Thomas. It's a collection of 114 Jesus sayings, and it's only Jesus that's saying them. For some oddity, they've given what probably should be called the Gospel of Jesus, they've given it a branding of the Gospel of Thomas. It'd be interesting to see if it's actually recorded on the document itself that it's a Gospel of Thomas, but I suspect not. And this Gospel of Jesus is quite interesting because it seems to echo the philosophy that the Cherokee was talking about. Not only that, we actually get Jesus saying that this idea of a God in the sky is an error. So what he says is, Jesus said, if your leaders say to you, look at the Father's kingdom is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you. So he's probably going against, that would be against both Islam, which wasn't around at that time, but against Islam and the Pharisees. And possibly Rome. Well, Rome had, who do they have? Jupiter. So Rome would not like to hear that. If they say to you it's in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Possibly a reference to Neptune or some sea god. Rather, the kingdom is within you and it's outside you. So he's saying that it's, it's the nature of things. Is this kingdom of the Father. When you know yourself, and that's true of the, the two wolf story. When you know these aspects and accept them, that's important. Yeah, a person that's behaving badly, and I guess by extension, a religious person, they don't know themselves. All they know is this, like a teenager who've developed ideas about themselves. Now, if they're accurate, it's not a problem. But if they're false, it always leads to a problem. So when you know yourselves, then you will be known. So is that a key to the problem when you know yourself? So it's like saying, have a good hard look at yourself. And from a Cherokee's standpoint, that's really knowing these two aspects that are going on inside you and just, managing one out of existence, or don't feed it, and favouring the other one. Then you will be known, and you will understand that you are children of the living Father. But if you do not know yourselves, then you live in poverty, and you are the poverty. And then he goes on to say the person old in days won't hesitate to ask a little child 7 days old about the place of light. Now, of course, the child 7 days old can't talk, but it's about the person, wouldn't hesitate. So, yeah, and then it goes on to saying that person will live. So, but then he wraps it up by saying, for many of the first will be last and will become a single one. This duality, and recognizing this duality in us, can take a lifetime for folks. Some may not even ever grasp it. But the reason for the 7 days old comment, because that's a child that cannot talk, what he's saying is that we're born with these characteristics, and that would be true. That's what the Cherokees, these are innate instincts, if we look at it from the Cherokee perspective. Yeah, so that makes sense. But what's interesting, it's important that when you know yourself, so if you want to help someone that's got this problem of religion, they have to know themselves. That's interesting. Because what happens when you actually have a debate with a, hello viewer, when you have a debate with a religious person and you have some good material to debate with them, they seem to recognize something that's a threat, a real threat, because their behavior switches. There's a switch in behavior. They go from nice, confident, calm person, and they get quite excited, and then they start to get personal in their attacks. So I guess the trick would be to get them to understand that behavior, know thyself, get the believer to understand that behavior or be a witness to it in some way. Because you can predict it. Like I've got some good talking points on the book of Daniel. And the book of Daniel, and this is with good scholarship support, can be shown to be about post-mortem prophecy. So in other words, it talks about events that had actually occurred before the writer had sat down to write the story. So if you presented that, and that's actually a really significant point in religions, because it's the same book that this angel Gabriel was born in. So if you've got fabrication of prophecy in the book of Daniel, and it truly is, you can't then say that the story about angel Gabriel being the interpreter of prophecy is a real thing. Now that has far-reaching consequences for Islam, because Muhammad tells us that he was visited by this same angel Gabriel. It couldn't have existed. It can't be true. It's impossible. So we have both Christianity, Judaism, and Islam all riding on the back of a lie. Yale University run a course that actually gets into the detail of how that prophecy, those prophecies were fabricated. It makes perfect sense. I mean, for goodness sakes, Angel Gabriel is not real. Neither's God's in the sky. But it's interesting. The interesting thing is when you know yourself. So the key, it seems, to someone with a belief I call ego mind. So the key, it seems, is to get that person to confront themselves. And that makes sort of sense because part of the, enlightenment journey, if you like, is really about knowing thyself honestly. Then go back to the two-wall story. We've got truth. Truth has to be a part of it. So know thyself. Know yourself. It's like holding up the mirror. Right, I need a Christian. Hey viewer, are you a Christian? You can't answer me. If you are a Christian, the Jesus story is true. Sorry, hang on, that's not correct. There was a real person called Jesus. His teachings are in what's known as the book of the Gospel of Thomas. That's a misnomer. It should be called the Gospel of Jesus. 61 of it has 114 sayings by the dude. I checked them all out. They all make rational sense. 61 of them are used in the Bible, New Testament, and that validates a thing called Q-source theory. Q-source theory says that the Gospels were constructed with the benefit of a Jesus sayings list. The ones that weren't included in the Bible they tell a very interesting story. It talks about it talks about a journey of self-discovery and a personal thing, if you like, with no leaders required at all. I could see how that sort of thinking would not be well received in Rome or by the Pharisees. Makes perfect sense. And of course, we see a community called the Essenes, which I think he might have belonged to. They got completely obliterated, wiped out, and they were just, well, they sounded like a bunch of hippies living in the hills, harmless, Yet the whole community was just completely wiped out. When you know yourself. So the trick now becomes, how do you hold up that mirror effectively to a person that has a belief mindset? Because they won't want to, guarantee it. They won't want to sit there through the inquiry. Because one of the characteristics of the ego mind, and when you know an ego mind's, you can tell when an ego mind's in play. The person's behavioural changes occur. They might have come into the room a normal, happy-go-lucky individual, but as soon as you touch on this nerve in a certain way, the behaviours start to change, and the patterns are that they want to first fight, so they can become quite aggressive. There's certainly personal attacks start. Even the most mature people do the personal attack thing. Educated folks, doesn't seem to matter. And then there'll be a short effort to regain composure and save face before exiting. Flight, fight. Fight, fight, flight. So they have a bit of a fight. If they can see they're not going to get anywhere, then it's about running away. So somehow you would have to convince the person, maybe just tell them that that's what's going to transpire, and wager a bet that they'll want to run away. But it's understanding how to defeat beliefs is a really important thing in our world. Extremely important, because beliefs are becoming a freaking nightmare. And of course, if Rome, the Roman Empire, owns Christianity, which it does, and Islam is owned by, I don't know who yet, Persian Empire perhaps, or Arabian Empire. There's a move afoot to take over, methinks, certainly from the Islam side. You talk to any Muslim and they'll tell you that they think that Islam is going to dominate the world. And me personally, I don't like that idea. So I know the story, and most atheists know the stories are nonsense. But the problem is no one's having any success at breaking that belief bubble. That's the problem. So people usually walk away from the whole topic and just say, it's too hard. But it's a lie, so there must be a way. There must be a way of getting through, breaking. It'd be a great thing if we knew how to burst belief bubbles effectively. We could save ourselves a lot of heartache, I would imagine. Anyways, I'm going to move on. I did want to speak to some, I think I call them trolls until they prove me wrong. There's people on the internet that like to just entertain themselves. This is selfish behaviour. And there's lies involved, so I know it's of the ego mind. The signatures are there. The folk that like to scam people get a bit of a kick out of it. So I've fortunately or unfortunately got a group that are scamming me, so I want to have a chat to them and see if we can't have an honest speak. And it sort of relates to the same thing, you know. They'll say they'll deny it at first, but interesting. Anyway, hooroo.